Hello, this is MusicTechHelpGuy, and welcome to episode 53 of my Logic Pro 10 video tutorial series. In this episode, we're going to take a look at and finish up with the Ultrabeat plugin, and we're going to talk about the step mode today, which is located right here. And we're also going to talk about how to mix Ultrabeat's voices, or the samples, in multi-output mode. So if you haven't watched the first two parts of this Ultrabeat sort of mini-series, I would highly recommend you do so, because a lot of this stuff is going to be confusing if you haven't seen that. All right, so just to kind of recap, this is just a drum kit we built in the previous two episodes based on some samples, and I built kind of a basic pattern here. And with step mode, we're going to be able to kind of not only tweak each individual sample, but we're going to be able to kind of tweak each individual step in the sequence, which is really cool. It's kind of like a form of automation without actually seeing like a breakpoint envelope. So let me just show you what I've got going on here. There you go. So I'm going to just turn step mode on here. And in step mode, really, right now, since I'm in the step sequencer, nothing really looks like it's changing. But if we get out of full view here and go back to the synthesizer view, and I click on step mode, a lot changes. Basically, what we're viewing now is down here in the step sequencer, each step down here, now instead of representing a note being played or a step being played, it's representing a control parameter for something up here. So everything up here that's highlighted in this yellowish orange, everything that's highlighted up here is something that can be an automated parameter. So you can create a step for it and then create a position for it. So let me just go out to one of my blank slots here just for the time being. So if I click here on step 1, I'm just clicking on this little gray area in between the one and then the actual sort of area here. So click on that. I actually added a step, but it's okay. I'm not. This voice is basically at 0 volume, so we're not going to hear it. But what you can do is, now that I've selected the step, I can pull up or pull down any parameter I want out here. So let's pull, say, the pitch down. And what you'll see down here is that there is a corresponding step for pulling down the pitch of oscillator number 2. So let's create another step, maybe on step 4 here. Let's pull that up. And maybe on 7, we'll pull that down. So basically, each step now can have a different pitch over here. And that goes for anything out here, the filters, the drive unit, some of the oscillator elements, the EQ, the envelopes. So this goes for anything out there. So let me just show you a practical example of how we can use this. Let's start with our closed hi-hat here. Right now, I'm just going to go ahead and solo it out. Right now, the closed hat sounds like this. Maybe I want this sort of run of 16th notes here to kind of start low and then kind of move upward in pitch. Well, that's one of the things that we can do. So let me go back to the synth view. We're in step mode already. Let's click on the very first one right here, step 25, and let's pull the pitch down. There we go. Now, once you choose a parameter out here and start moving it, it remembers it over here. So if I go to the next step here on 26 and click on it, I can actually just pull this straight down or up to adjust the pitch. So it remembers like the last control you just adjusted. So this is what I'm going to do with this. I'm just going to start on sort of a low pitch and go to a high pitch. Let's do something over here. Maybe on step 9, I want to pull the pitch up. And then maybe on step 17, we want to pull the pitch up. So let's see what that sounds like now. So now each step actually can have its own tuning. Now, I would try to do some sort of like a filter sweep or a filter adjustment to the hi-hat, but just the hi-hat's kind of difficult to do like a low-pass filter too, because the frequencies are just so high, you tend to just kind of cut it out. But I can use sort of like a high-pass or band-pass effect on it. Let's actually create a new kind of part of our pattern here. Let's go back to voice mode, go back to full view, and what I'm going to do is on this pedal hat here, I'm going to create sort of like an eighth note pattern. So just kind of, or a quarter note pattern. So I'll right click and I'll say add every downbeat, and let's solo that out as well. So this is just the this is just the pedal hat by itself. And what I want to do is I want to create sort of like a filtered effect where it kind of gets progressively high passed and then low passed across these 8 notes. So I'll just turn on my filter here, turn on the high pass filter, make sure that the sample is actually going into the filter by clicking here. So this oscillator needs to go into the filter for it to do anything. And if I kind of pull this down and then pull it back up, you can hear the difference between it being high passed and the filter being open. So let's try sort of like a slow, sort of like close or opening of the filter here. Let's go to step mode. The first step, let's pull the filter all the way down. The next one, let's be a little further down or a little less down. This one like so. This one all the way up. That one all the way up, or maybe pull it down a bit. There we go. Maybe I'll take this step out and do something different here. Let's kind of keep these kind of filtered sounding. So let's see what this sounds like now. So each step kind of has its own position in the filter. And by the way, you can apply multiple multiple controls to each voice. I'm just using one at a time right now, but if I wanted to, I could simultaneously maybe change the pitch of this first note, just maybe pull it up like so. And you can actually see both parameters here in this menu, so you can go back and forth between them. There we go. Let's try both hi-hats together now. There we go. All right, let's do something with our bass up here. We had this sort of synth bass effect that sounded like this. In the previous video, we applied a low-pass filter to this to kind of scoop up some of the higher overtones, because without the low-pass, it sounded like this. Maybe I want to bring some of those upper overtones and that grittier tone in just some of the time, but not all the time. Well, that's one other thing we can do with our step mode. So let's make the very first note have sort of like a more open filter. Let's have this one do the same, but maybe a little bit less. And maybe pull this one up as well. Let's see what that sounds like. Now notice that when I took us out of step mode, the effect went away. So you have to make sure that step mode is on in order to hear the effect. So there you go. That's step mode. You can go crazy with that. So let's talk about how to kind of individually mix each of the voices within the plugin. right now, because everything's kind of going to one channel strip over here, we can only put, like one effect on this, or one effect, excuse me, will affect the entire channel strip. So what if we wanted each voice or sample in the Ultrabeat to go to a different output so we can mix them individually? Well, that's what multi-output mode does. So first of all, we need to load Ultrabeat in multi-output mode. And so the way we do that, whoop, my battery's going low. The way we do that is we go to the Ultrabeat and just choose multi-output here. Even if you already have a stereo kit open, you can easily convert it to multi-output here. This is not going to reload a blank Ultrabeat for us. So now that we're in multi-output mode, what we're going to do is for each of our voices here, we're going to choose a different output for it. So right now, the output for all the voices is main. So we're going to choose a different sort of aux output. And Ultrabeat has its own auxiliary channel strips, its own aux tracks. So these will be separate from Logic's aux tracks, and they're also the pathway, the digital pathway through which the signal from, say, the kick drum is sent to the aux track, the bus. The buses are also Ultrabeat buses, so they don't use up Logic's Logic's mix buses. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of group like instruments. You don't necessarily have to make each voice its own output. You can if you want to, but you'll eventually start running out of buses because there's not an unlimited number of buses. And there's a very limited number of stereo buses as well. So what I'm going to do is my kick drum, I'm going to put that on 3 and 4. Sorry, that's my phone going off in the background there. The snare drum will be on 5 and 6. I'm also going to put the clap on 5 and 6 because they play at the same time. I've got a closed hi-hat here. I'm going to change that to 7 and 8. I'm going to make the open hi-hat here also 7 and 8. This other closed hi-hat up here, 7 and 8. And finally, this pedal hat will also be 7 and 8. This cowbell will be 9 and 10. And then the bass hit will be 11, 12. So I've got these all going to different outputs now. All right, so now let me just drag and drop in this sequence here. There we go. I can essentially just disable the sequencer now. And then this should play back what I just composed, including all of the steps. And it remembers the steps because of MIDI like hyperdata or continuous controller data. That's what all of these little kind of gray bars on the region are. That they're basically MIDI controls remembering the position, the step positions. There we go. All right, so now if I go to my mixer, since we loaded Ultrabeat in multi-output mode, you'll see this extra little plus and minus sign at the bottom of the Ultrabeat channel strip. Every time you hit that plus sign, it's essentially going to create another Ultrabeat aux track connected to the Ultrabeat channel strip. So I had kick, snare, I had hi-hats, I had it was like a wood block, and then I had the bass. So I hit that 5 times, and it created 5 Ultrabeat aux tracks. You'll also notice that it automatically, let me pull this down, it automatically adds the input of the track to be an Ultrabeat bus. So those buses that we chose before, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and so forth, those are basically signaling, or basically connecting the output of that voice within the Ultrabeat to the input of each of these aux tracks. So we've created just a sort of a split in the signal flow coming from Ultrabeat. So remember that 3 and 4 was our kick, 5 and 6 was the snare and clap, 7 and 8 was our hi-hats, 9 and 10 was like a wood block, and then 11, 12 was our bass. So now if I hit play, it's actually going to send the signal to all 5 of these aux tracks and not to the Ultrabeat channel strip. One thing I need to do real quick beforehand is just create a bus. You will not have to do this. This is just for me because It's just for me because I'm using bus 1 right now to send to my screen capture software, so you will not have to do this. All right, so let me hit play, and you'll see that the individual groups of instruments are now going to go to these aux tracks and not to the main Ultrabeat track. So it's the kick alone, the snare and clap alone, the hi-hats alone, wood block alone, and our bass by itself. So now you can go through and you can individually adjust the volume of your kind of groups of instruments here. And you can also add effects to each one individually now. So if I want my kick drum to maybe have be a little bit brighter, I can throw an EQ on that. Brighten it up a bit. Brighten up the high end a bit. Maybe scoop out the mids a hair. Pull up the bass a bit. And this adjustment, this EQ, is only going to affect the kick drum now. It's not going to affect everything else. Let me go ahead and throw some compression on there as well. There we go. Let's see what the kick sounds like. Maybe I want my snare drum to be a little brighter. Let's brighten up the mid-high range a bit. Actually, let's brighten up the high range as well. Let's cut out the lows. There we go. Maybe with my hi-hats, I also want to cut out the lows a bit. By the way, the EQ, the channel EQ in Logic has this nice little analyzer on the bottom here. And it lets you see your adjustment and also lets you see the frequency range of the instrument you're working with. So it's kind of useful. I tell you what, let's throw a bit of like a delay effect on the hi-hats here. Woodblock, I'll just leave you alone. Just fatten up the bass there a little bit. Let me go ahead and EQ the bass as well. Let me just try out the sample delay over here real quick just to kind of widen, give it sort of like a pseudo stereo effect. Let's listen to everything together now. And there you go. So that's how multi-output mode works in Ultrabeat. It just allows you to kind of separate each of your voices into a different aux channel strip in your mixer. And then you can individually add whatever type of effects you want to each channel. You can also add different sends as well. So let's say you wanted reverb on the snare and the hi-hats, but not on the kick drum. You could send out to another aux track with reverb on it, but that'll be a lesson for another day. So I hope you enjoyed the video, and thanks again for watching.